When one undertakes to develop a model, there are a set of guidelines that one should remember on an ongoing basis. Remember that the intent of a model it is a simplification of reality intended to promote understanding. And so that this set of guidelines will help you develop better models, which should better enable them to promote understanding. So the first thing is you should really know what it is that you want the model to help you understand. What is the situation that you're trying to figure out how to deal with? Because if you don't know what the model is supposed to accomplish, how will you ever know if the model is actually a good model in helping you accomplish that? It's appropriate to understand the extent of what it is you are capable of addressing. Simply developing aspects of the model which are things that you have no capacity to deal with are not helpful. They just end up complicating the situation. Also understand the time frame over which you're dealing with. Are you thinking in terms of weeks or months or years? And notes are essential. It's amazing how much we forget over time. If I develop a model today, I know what I'm thinking about as I develop the relationships. And it continues to be very surprising that when I look at the same model a week, a month, or a year later, how many of the thoughts that I had when I was creating it have simply evaporated over time. So documenting what I meant the relationships to mean is sort of a way of saving myself from myself in the future. You both, Insight Maker and Kumu, have great facilities for adding notes to every entity that you create. So with those in mind, there's a level of detail associated with the model. We talked before about certain times there are places where there are delays between the influence and the implications of that influence, and delays have a real effect on the way the model behaves. So when there are significant delays in relationship to the time frame that you're considering, you should annotate them on the model so that others would be aware of them. Also talked about variable names, where they should be noun or noun phrases, and they should be directionless, so that we don't talk about an entity as increasing or decreasing resources. It's just resources. Labels, in terms of when we develop loops, to identify the labels for those loops so that we have it's easier to understand the intent of the loop itself, whether it's a balancing loop or a reinforcing loop, and what that loop is attempting to accomplish. The influences, in terms of how, for every entity, asking yourself, what does this element influence and what influences it, so that you can continue to expand the model based upon what's relevant. Indicated that all balancing loops have goals. You should be sure that you have identified, if there is a balancing loop, you know what the goal is for that loop. All reinforcing loops sooner or later run into limits. It's appropriate to identify what those limits are likely to be. For simulation models, which we haven't talked about in this program, but we will in another program, it's appropriate to use units in the model so that it helps you to not mix apples and oranges in the context of the model. And we'll talk about that in another program. And you should do a reality check on the model in terms of, has what you developed actually make sense in the context of the real world? So this is just a set of guidelines that you should, or you could actually use it as a checklist to say, have I thought about this? Have I thought about this? Are my labels right? Have I identified the goals and limits? Are there any entities that I haven't asked about the influences for? Are my variable names appropriate? And if you use this set of guidelines on an ongoing basis, you your models will be more understandable in the future to you and to others. So hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in another video shortly. Bye.